in this ECG we can't see the calibration. So I had told you that if there is no calibration we should not interpret or comment on the ECG. But anyway, we'll just presume that this is a normally calibrated ECG, and we'll go ahead. Now first thing you have to do is you have to look at the whether the P wave is coming from the SA node or not. Rate, rhythm, axis. So you look at this P wave, it is a normal looking P wave. Look at few P waves and they all look normal in shape and size. And if one of the P waves is of different shape or size or duration, it could mean that the P wave is not coming from the SA, the impulse is not coming from the SA node, rather the site of origin is from the atria, and it could be a atrial ectopic. It will also have a P wave and a QRS complex and a T wave, and but the shape of the P, Q or ST might be little different from a normal complex which is of which the impulse is coming from the SA node. Now this looks like a normal sinus rhythm. All the P waves, they are of, and whenever you have to look at the comment on the P wave, you look in lead 2 and you look in lead AVF P waves, and out here P is of good height, normal duration, and in V1 P wave is slightly biphasic but it's not enlarged, so it's a normal looking P wave. Then we come at the rate, heart rate. For this you have to look at the number of complexes, big squares between the two RR intervals. So you can pick up any two RR intervals, but try to find one R wave which is at the darker side of the on the darker line of this big square. Out here this is the best place to start. So we count the number of big squares, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So there are 4 big squares between two RR intervals, and the formula was 300 divided by number of big squares. So the answer is 75. Or you can, if you want to refine it a little bit, you can divide 1500 by number of small squares between the two RR intervals. So you divide 1500 divided by 20, 5 4s are 20. One big square has 5 small squares, and one small square is 0.04 seconds in duration and 0.1 millivolts in height. So that is the heart rate. Heart rate, and rhythm was normal sinus rhythm. And then is the axis. For axis we had discussed various methods, 5 methods. The first method is you look whether the lead 1 is positive or negative. For that you have to minus R from S or S from R. Out here there is no S wave in lead 1, and so lead 1 is positive. Then look in AVF. Out here AVF also doesn't have S wave. This is also positive. And if you remember that circle, Einthoven's triangle, where we represented in that circle, lead 1 is at 0 degree, AVF is at plus 90 degree, and so the axis is lying between 0 and 90 degrees. And then second thing I said was look at the tallest star, which I call it James log. So tallest star between the amongst the first 6 leads, lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, AVR, AVL and AVF. Lead 2 is the tallest, okay, and so that will be the axis. So lead 2 is lying between 0 degree and plus 90 degree. In fact it is at plus 60 degrees, so that is the axis. The third method I taught you was find the most isoelectric complex in the first 6 leads. So there is no S wave out here, no S wave out here, no S wave, no R wave, no S wave. In fact AVL has a small s and a bigger R. So just extend your imagination and think that this is the isoelectric complex. It is not a true isoelectric complex because R does not equal to S, but it has a S wave. Rest of the complexes don't have an S wave. So AVL is at minus 30 degrees. So what is perpendicular to minus 30? Plus 60 degree. So the axis is at plus 60 degree, rate, rhythm axis. Then you look at the QRS duration. It is not more than 3 big squares. So it is a normal sinus rhythm. It is not starting from the ventricle. There is no block. Okay, there is no right bundle branch block or a left bundle branch block in which the duration of the QRS complex will be wider. It will be more than 3 small square, 0.12 seconds. It will be more than 0.12 seconds. And then the next thing you have to say is the progression of R wave from V1 to V6. So out here there is small r, t is inverted, which I said can be normal. V2, r is little big, t is also slightly bigger, r is bigger than in V2, t is also bigger. Also I told you t follows r. If r is good, t has to be of good amplitude. If t is not of good amplitude, it could mean ischemia or some electrolyte abnormality or some other drug effect. Then I taught you about the transition zone, which is always usually between V3 and V4. And out here, transition zone is where R becomes taller than S wave in the anterior chest leads. So this is a perfectly normal transition zone out here between V3 and V4. Then R is further tall, and R is the tallest in V5 normally, and in V6 R is tall but not as tall as in V5. So the progression of R waves from V1 to V6 is normal. Rate, rhythm, axis, they are normal because this is a normal ECG. We are starting with the normal ECG. Then you look at the PR interval. It is less than 5 small squares and more than 3 small squares. So PR interval is normal. There is no first degree AV block. Then you look at the QT interval. I had told you that with the heart rate of between 60 to 100, QT should not be more than 2 big squares. So this is less than 2 big squares QT interval. So this is also normal. So just to conclude, this is a normal sinus rhythm, a normal ECG in a person who has probably no cardiac disease.